Okay, so, thank you. I'm boycotting this cold, rainy weather. I'm dressing in sandals and bright colors every day because I'm in boycott mode.
Good
So
job.
I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about organ and tissue donation, of course, right? And so this is a decision that you're going to need to be making for yourself, but I want to make sure that you're making this decision with a lot of information and facts to back it up. You know what it's like in life to make decisions in all different areas. The best thing for you to do is to have information to back up whichever decision that you make. So I'm not here to tell you whether you need to put yes or no, I'm just here to tell you about it so that you can make an informed decision. Now what happens if you put yes on your driver's license or your learner's permit, the driver's license division will send your information into the donor registry. So you become registered to be a donor. If you put no, then it doesn't. Now each time you renew your license, it will update with whatever your wishes are. Another way that you can register to be a donor is on our website, yesutah.org. On that website, you can register to be a donor. You can also get your name off the registry if you ever change your mind. So, you can change your mind along the way as many times as you would like to. And they make it pretty easy on you to do that. If something were to happen to you under the age of 18, though, your decision does have to be legally verified by a parent or a guardian. So it's very, very important, really important, to talk to your parents, to talk to your family about your wishes. Let someone know how you feel about this. If you come out of the class today saying, yeah, that sounds pretty cool, I want to be involved in that, be sure and tell someone that. If you come out of class today going, no, that isn't for me at this moment in time, then let someone know that too. The reality is, when somebody's going to donate organs and tissues, it's usually when you die, right? I mean, there's some exceptions, and we'll talk about that, but most of what we're talking about in the registry is about what do you want to have happen to your organs and tissues after you die. So the person that the decision is being made about is the person that isn't there to say what they want. That's why we have a registry, and that's why we have these conversations with our families so we know how each other feel about it and wishes can be honored. That's the whole reason we have that.
Today, Sunny Mahe is speaking to a group of medical professionals about the many miracles that happened the day her precious 3-year-old daughter Elsie suffered fatal injuries.
And I was also watching a neighbor's 2 kids while I busied myself with household chores. Elsie's little friend came and tapped me on the hip to tell me Elsie's hanging by the string. Well, I walked into my front room and I found that Elsie had become entangled in a cord from our blinds, and she was life-flighted to Primary Children's Hospital.
As Sunny reflects on the events that took place, she says many miracles happened that day.
The paramedics who were the first to respond, they just happened to be on break 3 minutes away from my home. Never performed CPR. I had gotten her heart started. With all of these miracles that we felt like had fallen into place, we had every reason to hope for the best outcome. And so when we received such a devastating diagnosis, my question was, why?
As the couple prayed for understanding, Sunny says the answer came in the form of organ donation.
Elsie's passing has left an unfillable hole in our lives. But it was such a healing option for us to know that our pain could be turned into another's joy. It was such a blessing to be able to walk with her down to the operating room, knowing that she was going to be a life-saving miracle.
Sunny and Reno set up a foundation in Elsie's honor to pay it forward.
I feel like organ donation was such a blessing for us because of the way that it was able to help others and help us feel comforted that our pain would bring joy.
So this story gives us a pretty important message. Everybody in here knew already that if somebody needs a transplant and they get it, then that's a benefit to them and to their family, right? You already knew that. I didn't need to be here to tell you that part. What the Mahes are sharing with you is that many people who are donor families also feel like having their loved one be able to go on and help after they've passed away helps them a little in their healing process, helps them a little bit through their grieving process. Now, no one's claiming, not the Mahes, not us, we're not claiming that it makes it okay that this happened. Of course it's not okay that this happened. It's just a little bit of a step in their healing process that they're able to use to help through the steps of grieving. All right, so 3 basic types of donors that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start with the organs. First of all, let's see if you guys can list the 6 life-saving organs that can be transplanted. Yes. Kidney, good, yes.
Heart.
Heart, yes.
Liver.
Liver, yes. Kidney, heart, liver?
Lungs.
Lungs, yes.
Intestine.
Intestines, nice. Small intestine, one more. In your body system area. So we have heart, lungs, liver, kidney, small intestine, one more.
Large intestine.
The large intestine is not usually transplanted, but yes.
Brain.
Brain can't be transplanted. Actually, can do some repairs on the brain with tissues, but not the whole brain.
Get out stuff.
Skin is an organ, you're right, and it is a very important donation, but we just use a thin top layering of the skin, so it ends up in the tissue category. So I'll give you a hint. This last organ produces insulin.
Oh, your pancreas.
Pancreas, nice. So those are the 6 life-saving organs that can be transplanted. Now what we're going to find out about in a minute is in order to qualify to give organs after someone passes away, you actually have to die in a real certain way and meet some real strict requirements to qualify to give organs. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Tissues are what a lot of us will be able to give. And I want you to understand the importance of tissue donation. Everybody knows that it's important to get a heart transplant or a kidney transplant or a liver transplant, right? We get that. But I want you to see all the things that can be done with tissues because more of us will be able to donate tissues. And also a lot of people need tissue transplants. You know, tissue transplants on their own or tissue transplants as part of other surgical procedures. Happens very, very often. All right, so these are the 6 organs that you guys just listed, right? That can come from one donor. This one donor and their 6 organs actually have the capability of saving more than 6 lives. So look at this list and count it up, and somebody tell me how many lives could potentially be saved with this one donor.
64. Or 36.
If you did organs and tissues, you could be over 60 for sure. But just with the 6 organs, how many lives could be saved?
Oh, I was confused.
With one donor. It's more than 6.
7.
More than 7.
13. 12.
Not quite 12.
2 more.
8.
So how'd you get 8 out of that?
2 lungs and 2 kidneys.
Right. So, heart. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
What about the valves of the heart?
So the valves of the heart are a tissue. So that it would not include the organs. But yes, it is life-saving. It's not an organ, so that's in a different category. That's good. So, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys. Anybody have any idea how we could bump that 8 to 9 maybe?
Liver.
The liver. What about the liver?
You can regrow it, right?
That's right. So the liver sometimes can be split and regrow. And then heart, pancreas, small intestine. So anywhere between 1 and 9 lives could possibly be saved with one qualifying organ donor. So about 8.5 years ago, Brandon was on the high school football team. So after the morning practice, he and some of his teammates decided to get into one of their friends' Jeep and go off and do some things before they had to come back for the afternoon practice. Well, you know, the parking lot in the high school in the summer is not as crowded as it is during the school year, right? So they decided to do a little messing around in the parking lot. Unfortunately, they were in an accident in the parking lot. Brandon was very critically injured in that accident. Now, they rushed him to the hospital, and they tried everything in their power to save his life, and he did end up eventually dying from those injuries that he received in that accident. So then his parents were faced with that difficult decision. Do we have him be a donor or not? Well, they didn't have to decide that all by themselves. How do you think they knew the right decision for Brandon was to have him be a donor? Yes, please.
He put it on his license?
Yes, he had put it on his license. What had he done in addition to that to help them with that decision? Yes?
He talked to them before about it?
He talked to them, yeah. So after he had this presentation and when he went to get his license, he had a conversation with his parents about donation and told them that he wanted to be a donor, that he wanted to put yes, and why he wanted that. So it gave them some peace with that decision. You know, it's never easy, it's a very difficult time, but it gave them peace with at least that part of it and that decision that they made about him. Brandon saved the lives of 5 people with 6 of his organs. They gave his corneas to 2 different people so they could see, and a whole bunch of his tissues were used. Now, the reason why he was able to save 5 lives with 6 organs is because Marley received 2 of his organs. All right, so when somebody finds out they need an organ transplant, they have to get on a waiting list. So first of all, you have to move up the waiting list for the organ that you need. So how do you think somebody moves up the waiting list? Yes?
By importance of more how bad.
How badly they need it, yes. How else? Yeah.
Someone getting a transplant or passing away waiting for a transplant.
Right, so if somebody ahead of you comes off the list, so either in the way that we love, meaning 90 to 100 people a day that are getting their transplants, or the way that we hate and wish would go away, the 20 people per day that end up dying before they're able to get their transplant. There are about 114,000 people on the waiting list waiting for organs. Now, once you get near the top of the waiting list or at the point where it's going to be close to your turn to get an organ, could you just get anybody's organ that comes along?
No.
No, why not? Why not match? What has to match you? Blood type for sure, some tissue typing. What else do you think would have to match? For every organ except the kidney, this has to match up pretty well.
Your
Yeah.
blood?
Yeah.
Oh, the sex.
Gender actually does not have to match, which is good that you brought that up because it's good to know that. Yeah.
Size?
The size, yeah, the size has to work out. So there's kind of a lot of stuff that has to happen to make this work out, right? You have to live close enough to get it there safely. You know, there's a lot of stuff that is factored into who gets which organ, and of course how severe your condition is. About 114,000 people, I mentioned that. About 100 of those people today are getting their transplant. About 20 today sadly will not be able to get the transplant in time and not survive.
That's so sad.
Every 10 minutes, somebody new gets added to the waiting list. So we're in about a 90-minute class today. Just while we're sitting here in class today, 9 more people are going to get added to the waiting list. So it doesn't have a lot of chance to shrink, unfortunately. All right, so these are the requirements at the time of death to qualify to give organs. This doesn't count for the tissues. This is just for those 6 organs. So first of all, you have to be in a hospital when you die. Second, you have to have been put on the ventilator before you die. Third, usually the death has to be the result of a brain death or a brain injury instead of, say, your heart stopping or other organs shutting down. There are some exceptions to that, but there are no exceptions to the ventilator. Why do you think being on the ventilator is so important in order to give organs? Yes?
Because your organs still have oxygen.
Yes, to keep your organs getting oxygen. Because what will happen to an organ if it goes without oxygen? It goes bad really fast, right? So it's not a healthy organ to transplant if it's been without oxygen. That's why they have to be so picky about it. But that's also why not that many of us qualify to give organs. In fact, not that many is 1%, right? There's a lot of ways that they check to make sure if a brain injury has turned to brain death. They do all kinds of reflex response testing. They can also do an x-ray to see if there's blood flow coming from the brainstem or if there isn't. The brainstem is kind of the key difference between a brain injury and a brain death, whether the brainstem is functional or not. And they're very careful. They make these tests, they take these tests as often as they need to make sure that there is no brain activity left before they call it a brain death. All right, so we'll just kind of talk about this at the beginning of class. That there are a lot of misconceptions and rumors out there about donation, some of which make people not want to register to donate after they've died. So I want to make sure that you guys are getting the true story about some of these and not making your decisions on a rumor or a misconception.
I renewed my license today. Check the box to be an organ donor. Dude, that means when you're in the emergency room and the doctors find out, they're going to slow down. Do you realize how many people need organs?
Okay, so that speaks to what we've been talking about already, right? Did you get that? So he's worried that if his friend signs up to be a donor, they rush him to the hospital, find out he's a donor, and they'll just let him die on purpose so they can give his organs away. Do you think that's what doctors are doing? No. The answer is big no. Absolutely not. The doctors will do everything in their power to save your life. The doctors have to take an oath before they can become a doctor that they will promise to save lives. Nurses have an oath that is similar to that. They promise to save lives. It's part of becoming licensed to be a medical professional to take that oath. That's part of it. But if that's not enough, realize that the doctors in the hospital are not even the ones that are getting in there to find out if you're registered to be a donor. That's somebody else's job to look in to see if you're registered to be a donor. So they're busy saving your life. That is all they're wanting to do, and somebody else worries about the rest of it. So you don't have to worry about that at all. But don't be surprised if some of you are speaking with your family and get this question. You know, you already heard Mr. Jones has a friend that believes that. We had to go through this whole conversation with some family members of ours and help them with some of this information. So some of you may have to, take that role of helping them understand this. Another thing that happens is sometimes people just assume that certain medical conditions or diseases that they have would automatically eliminate them from donating organs and tissues, so why bother putting yes? But actually, there are only 2 diseases that are automatic rule-out diseases for donation. What do you think those 2 are?
Cancer.
Cancer, so active, current, at the time of death cancer. If you've had cancer in the past and don't have it anymore, it doesn't automatically rule you out, but if you have it currently, it does. In a few rare cases, corneas can sometimes still be used. And then one other disease that's automatic rule-out.
AIDS.
AIDS, yes. Cancer and AIDS. Those are the only 2 that are automatic rule-outs. Just about anything else that you can think of, they will make an individual case-by-case assessment. When someone passes away, they will do a medical assessment and decide, first of all, if you could be a donor, and then next, what could be donated or what can't be donated. So each person is individually decided. So moral of that story is, yes, please.
So I just heard recently on the radio that they gave a guy, I think it was a liver, and he had hepatitis, and then they cured him of the hepatitis after he already had an infected liver, so.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, it used to be that if you had hepatitis, you couldn't donate, and it also used to be that HIV, before it turned to AIDS, you couldn't donate, and that's changed, actually. Yes, so he's from right here in Salt Lake, and had that happen. Yeah, they have a way to cure hepatitis C now, and so he was healthy enough that they felt like he could receive that. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because the whole thing I was talking about is the medical rules about donation are changing all the time. Last year, if we would have said, we're going to give a hepatitis C liver to someone, we would have said, no way, right? Now we can do that. So we never know, it's a perfect example of how we never know what's changing in the medical world. So if you want to be a donor, you just check yes. If you don't want to be a donor, you check no. And at the time of, based on the current medical rules about donation, then they'll make that decision. So thank you for bringing that up. That was perfect timing for that. We also know that all major religions in the United States do support organ donation. If you or somebody in your family wants to know more than just taking my word for it, on our website, the yesutah.org, you can go in under frequently asked questions, and then there's a link where it will take you to a section that talks about lots of different religions. And I can almost guarantee you that whatever religion you are, it's on there, and they're probably okay with donation. So you can look that up if anyone wants verification about that. My thought is on religion. Most of the time what I hear is that not so much people are positive that their religion's okay with this, or they're positive that their religion's not okay with this. Most of the time we're kind of in that gray area of, I don't know, I haven't really checked on that. And so, if you want to get sure, that's an easy way to do it. Donation also does not prevent you from having any kind of funeral service that you want, up to and including an open casket or a viewing. The recovery of the organs and tissues is done very carefully, very respectfully. It's in a surgical setting, and everything is restored back to the way that it's supposed to look. Both the recovery specialists and the mortuary, their number one goal is the peace and comfort of the family, and trying to make things as peaceful for the family as possible. It's also not going to cost your family anything if you choose to be a donor for the donation process. They're not going to say, thank you for this beautiful, life-saving, life-changing gift that you've given, and here's a big fat medical bill for your family. No, that is not how that goes. From the point that we know someone is a donor forward, any medical costs incurred during that are not sent to the donor family. That also includes living donation. If you're a living donor, you don't have to pay for the surgical procedures. Speaking of living donation, when we get to that a little bit later, we're going to talk about the fact that there are some age requirements to be a living donor. But if you are a donor after you die, there are no age requirements. You can be considered a living donor at really any age, even very young and very, very advanced age. Think back to Elsie Mahe, right? She was only 3 years old. So why would a 3-year-old need to be considered as a donor possibly? Yes?
Because other 3-year-olds might need something
Right.
that's small, same size as
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So as hard as it is to think about an infant or a toddler needing to be a donor, there are infants and toddlers on the other side of it that might need that to have their life saved. And so even though it's a difficult thing to think about, it's a possibility. And into 80s and 90s, tissues can still be used. So many, many years of your life, you could be considered a possible donor. Okay, so guess what? Now we get to look at some organ pictures. And here we go.
What'd you say about mama?
Okay, what's this?
Heart.
Heart.
Yeah.
I can't see.
So that is a healthy heart.
The fat that's around it, isn't that yellow stuff fat?
You're right, the yellow stuff is fat. That is a little bit of fatty tissue. You can have and actually should have a little bit of fatty tissue around your organs for protection, just not too much, so that's an okay amount. What's this?
That's a heart.
Yes, I know, huh? Yeah, I don't know and I can't tell part. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because a heart doesn't look a thing like that, right? That heart is the wrong shape, size, color, everything is wrong with that heart. This heart actually in this picture is being removed so this person can receive a transplant.
Okay,
So
this one's
this heart is in very, very bad shape. But it is hard to guess all the time because it doesn't look a thing like a heart anymore. Similar thing happened to Abby, where with no warning that anything was wrong with her, she was jogging in PE class and collapsed. Well, thankfully the PE teacher was very fast acting, went right to her and realized that she did not have a pulse. So the teacher did CPR on her and did it until the ambulance got there. They ran a bunch of tests and they found out that Abby also had like a hereditary gene that was a heart disease. And they didn't know they had it in their family until this happened, and especially that Abby had it. Immediately she had to be listed for a heart transplant. She was in very bad shape right from the beginning. And so she got her transplant in about 7 months' time. Her donor family too has chosen to remain anonymous. Abby is now just finished her sophomore year of college. So, you know, she has her whole life and all these things she can do ahead of her thanks to this gift of this heart transplant. Okay, here comes another organ. What's this?
That's your pancreas.
Yep, that's a kidney. So that's a healthy kidney. You can tell again by the doctor's hands that the kidneys aren't very big, right?
It looks like a...
This is a healthy kidney also. This is a kidney with polycystic kidney disease. It's hereditary. It runs in families. Actual size comparison, if you can believe that, huh? I know. Okay, what's this?
That's a big old liver.
That's a liver, yep. So the liver's a big organ, you can tell, right? So they do the split liver. They end up with a little smaller section, a larger section, usually how they split it. That's a healthy liver. And of course,
That's an unhealthy
that's a
one.
bad liver, right? So we all know there are things you can do to trash your own liver, right? You know, you've been to health class, you've been to Red Ribbon Week. There's things you can do to wreck your own liver. But there's also a lot of people who have liver disease through absolutely nothing that they have done. Obviously, Ashton didn't do anything to destroy his liver. Ashton was born with liver disease, and we have a video about Ashton, and it's going to talk to you about how he was able to receive a liver transplant when he was a baby.
In tonight's Gift of Hope organ donation story, you're going to meet a young man who received a life-saving liver when he was just a baby. Tonight, Fox 13's Hope Woodside has a look at how organ donation made it possible for Ashton Arndt to fulfill his dreams.
When Ashton Arndt was born, he was jaundiced. It was a precursor to a serious diagnosis. At 2 months old, doctors determined Ashton had liver disease. Thankfully, his mother, Jolena, was a match.
I saw being a match as amazing. I was grateful for the opportunity to be able to do something rather than watching a sick child deteriorate and possibly die.
Not only did Ashton thrive after the transplant, today he's an athlete. He runs 50 miles a week, snowboards, water skis, and runs high school cross country and track. And he's also a top competitor in the transplant games.
Having a transplant really makes me appreciate everything that I have and for my family because I know that they'll always be there for me.
Ashton can't go overseas because of his transplant, but is excited to serve an LDS mission here in the States.
My parents have always said that your life has been saved for a reason. Now that I'm 18 years later healthy and I can go out and do it, that's my plan.
It's a plan he couldn't be doing without organ donation. To be an organ donor, say yes on your driver's license or state ID card, or go online and sign up at www.yesutah.org. Hope Woodside, Fox 13 News.
All right, what are these?
Your lungs.
Lungs, yeah, those are healthy lungs. So that's the left lung with 2 chambers and the right lung with 3 chambers. Those lungs are full with oxygen right now. If I remember correctly, they're getting ready to be transplanted into someone. And
Smoker's lungs.
Definitely lungs that you don't want to be trying to breathe out of there, huh? Those lungs are in very, very bad shape. So why is it possible to give away a kidney when you're alive? Yes?
You have two.
You have 2 kidneys, and your body can function just fine on 1 kidney. Now, if you wanted to give a kidney away, first of all, you have to offer to do it. I want to make sure you're clear on this. If you want to be a living donor of anything, you have to offer that separate from the registry. The registry is just to let someone know what you want after you've passed away. Living donation is all a separate request. You have to be over 18 and super healthy to qualify to give away a kidney, but you could do that. You can offer to give it to someone you know. You could actually even offer to give it away to someone that you don't know. It's called Good Samaritan donation, to give a kidney to someone that you don't know if you're over 18 and healthy. And that's done. People are doing it. It's kind of amazing that people are doing that, but they are. So why is it possible to give away part of your liver when you're alive? Yes?
Because you can split it.
You can split it, and then what happens? You said it earlier. What happens?
Regrows.
It regrows. So the liver can be split, as we saw with Ashton and his mom, given away a part, regrows in both people, and it can be very successful. It isn't done as often as the kidney because it's quite a bit more complex. Definitely you have to be well over 18 at the very, very least, and super, super healthy to qualify to give a liver, but you certainly can do it. Anybody know how old you have to be a life-saving blood donor in the state of Utah? 16. 16 with signed permission from a parent or a guardian. You can go on and save lives at a pretty young age. They'll do them. Have they already done blood drives here this year at your school? Yeah, so they will every year at your school. So if you want to be involved in that and you meet the physical requirements and have permission, you can start saving lives. Anybody know anything about bone marrow transplants or bone marrow itself? Yeah.
My friend has leukemia, so he had a bone marrow transplant.
And who was this donor?
I don't think he was
Didn't know. Okay, so a bone marrow transplant, one of the hardest parts about it is finding a match. You have to have a very, very, very close biological match for bone marrow especially. So who do you think they would actually check with first to find a match for your bone marrow? Yeah, family. Maybe your parents. Who might match you even just a titch closer than your parents? Your siblings, yeah. Now, siblings don't always match each other, and a total stranger might match you. You never know, because you just never know with bone marrow. But sometimes they'll check with siblings first. And the reason I bring that up is because siblings are able to give to one another, then they allow you to do it pretty young. You could be a bone marrow donor pretty young. These are some of the things that can be done with the donated bones. Remember I told you they can be processed into a few different things? And it's a heart valve and a blood vessel. Now this is a medallion that's given to donor families as a gift. It is a thank you for their gift of donation. Now these can be kept in a drawer, put on the mantle, whatever. They're about this big. And the other thing that can happen is they're made to be inlaid in a headstone. So if anybody wants to ever have that done, they can do that. Or if you ever see that at a cemetery, you'll know that that person has given the gift of donation. Roger was in an accident and he was a donor. Now, since Roger's accident and Roger's donation, his family is a huge supporter of donation. In fact, they just hosted a big rodeo fundraiser over the weekend to raise money for donation awareness. This is Roger's sister, and they started rodeo ambassadors for donation. And what happens is they go to each rodeo and they hand out brochures and they have big donate life flags flying behind them on their horses to raise awareness and educate people about donation. So this is probably a pretty good a good place for me to stop. So I have a couple things to pass out to you before we go. One is this brochure. It has our website. It has some pictures of a lot of people that we've talked about today. Yes, please.
You guys are government organization?
We are a nonprofit. So not government yet, but nonprofit. Yeah. Very good question. Okay, I have one more thing to give you with this brochure, but you got to say what it is first.
human heart. It's a mint.
Life saved.
It's a mint.
Oh, lifesaver, right? Okay, so make sure that you are talking to your family about your wishes, whether it's yes or whether it's no. Make sure that you are throwing these wrappers in the garbage, please. And If anybody has any other questions for me while I'm passing these out, please feel free to ask me.
Give Jane a hand, please.